everyone, this is the Tamron 35 to 100mm f2.8. I'm going to be testing this lens out on location at a portrait photo shoot for photo and video, so let's get into it. Today, for the first time ever, I've actually got the lens on Sony and Nikon. So I'm shooting on the Sony a7IV and also the Nikon Z8, so I'll have examples with both cameras for you to look at with the lens. So I'm going to start off with the Z8 right here. This 35 to 100mm f2.8 is a full frame lens with a constant aperture available for both Z and E mount. This lens is the smaller and lighter version of the Tamron 35 to 150 f2 to 2.8, and throughout this video we're going to see if they cut any corners in terms of quality and performance. Do you mind sitting on the ground here? Is that okay? Yeah, like that. That's great. I'll be sharing lots of unedited, straight out of camera images at 100% crop so you can see the true detail this lens produces, and afterwards, my edited version, which I chose to use my Wildfern Lightroom preset pack, which is linked down below. As always, thank you to Tamron for loaning me this lens. However, this review is not sponsored by them. They don't tell me what to say, and I don't keep the lens. And now I'm going to switch over to the Sony. 35 to 100mm is an interesting focal range because it covers environmental portraits through to tight headshots, which is why I think it works especially well for portrait sessions, event coverage, and travel. I want to use the red door as well. It's so beautiful. Oh, the bins. Maybe like a half full body shot. There's always bins, no matter what. For some photographers, this could potentially replace a 24 to 70mm, giving you a slightly more zoomed in wide end while gaining extra reach on the long end. This lens produces very clear images with a fine level of sharpness across both systems. Considering the focal range this lens covers, I'm actually really impressed at the image quality. And let's move on down the street. Oh, here would be a good spot actually to do some walking shots. So if you want to walk together this way and we get like all the green in the background when you're ready. This lens has no IBIS, so I kept my ISO slightly higher to maintain a fast enough shutter speed to avoid motion blur. We didn't have any sun to work with on this day, so there wasn't as much available light. By the way, today's model is Eva, Lydia is on hair and makeup, and Dan is filming this behind the scenes. And then I want to get some shots with like this in the background, so if you could please stand just here in the middle of the road. And I'm going to step back so I can get some shots more at the telephoto end because we've been shooting quite wide. Wow, that looks so cool. I asked Eva to move around as much as she liked during this photo shoot and she really delivered. So we are able to see some good performance results from this lens. I'm also really excited to let you know that my Mastering Natural Light for Portrait Photography online workshop is now live. If you struggle to capture consistent results at your photo shoots or get stuck on knowing if the lighting you're working with looks good, then I created a 3-hour workshop split up into short videos that you can watch at your own pace to learn everything I know about getting the best results with natural light. My workshop includes guides on how to shoot with harsh midday sun, afternoon light, golden hour, and blue hour, and I'll leave a link down below if you're interested in getting access. This lens has a minimum focus distance of 22 centimeters on the wide end and 65 centimeters on the long end. We'll take a closer look at the bokeh soon, but one thing I noticed while editing these photos is that occasionally the background looks a little bit nervous, meaning the bokeh has more texture rather than being super smooth. I'll include a few comparisons to the Tamron 35 to 150 throughout this video, so keep an eye on the bokeh when they pop up so you can see what I mean. There was also quite a lot of vignetting in the wider angle shots that I had to correct while I was editing. Let's head over to the autofocus test Dan and I filmed on another day. These are all with the A9 III now. I have the camera set to wide area continuous AF with the fastest focus and transition settings available so you can see the performance. This 35 to 100 makes use of VXD linear motors, which is what the majority of Tamron's newer lenses are using now, so you can expect the same or similar performance across that range of Tamron lenses. As you can see, this lens really doesn't skip a beat out on location and had no problem staying sticky on the subject even as we were running around. In terms of video quality, this lens looks great for that as well. It produces a very sharp image with lots of detail and texture and has that nice dreamy background thanks to the fast f2.8 aperture. It does a pretty good job at staying focused while zooming and has minimal focus breathing. One downside to keep in mind if you're a videographer who uses gimbals is that center of gravity does shift forward when you zoom in as it is an external zoom lens. I noticed between 35 to 50mm it kept balance before becoming front heavy at 50mm and onwards. And then do you want to sit just over here as well? I'm thinking if you sit like on the edge facing this way, get a bit of that purple in the background is so pretty. Depending on your gimbal and its payload, you may have to rebalance at different focal lengths, or you might be able to get away with finding a usable sweet spot where your gimbal can compensate since it is quite a short external zoom. So this will all come down to your gimbal. I am super impressed at how small and lightweight this lens is. This 35-100 weighs 565 grams for E-mount and the Z-mount version weighs 575 grams. It has external zoom with a zoom ring and focus ring. Even when at the 100mm end with the lens extended, it is still quite compact. This lens has a USB-C port, a customizable 3-way switch linked to the customizable button, it's moisture resistant and uses a 67mm filter thread. Although this lens doesn't have IBIS, this wouldn't be a deal breaker for me since most modern camera bodies offer good in-body stabilization, but this is something to keep in mind if you find you shoot in low light often or you tend to rely on your lens's IBIS. I shoot this way. That's pretty cool. This lens has 9 circular aperture blades and has an aperture range of f2.8 to f22. And then we'll go to the next street. So let's just get some shots in the middle, I think. Oh, so pretty. The bokeh is quite textured. You can see a lot of rings in it. On the wider end of the lens, you most likely won't notice it in your photos too much, but this texture definitely becomes more noticeable at longer focal lengths like 50 to 60mm and above. This texture is what's contributing to the background looking a bit nervous in some of the on-location portraits, rather than the background being perfectly smooth. The bokeh is nice and round though. You can start to see more edges from around f5 and onwards. And then I just noticed that door, if you want to stand like just here, we'll get like that splash of blue. This lens has a variety of lens flares, and here's a collection of them that I've photographed at various focal lengths. Honestly, for a zoom lens, I think this lens produces pretty subtle flares. I like how they blend into the photo and are not too obvious in some of the frames. This lens has a pretty good handle on chromatic aberration as well. I was only able to see some fringing in my lens flare backlit test. These were the only couple of photos I could see it in. The other lens flare shots are completely clean. When the fringing does pop up, it is minor enough that you could remove it easily in editing software without degrading the quality of your images. I love this as well. Yeah. If you want to get in like as close as you can. Yes, that's so nice. As I briefly mentioned, this lens is the compact and lightweight option compared to the Tamron 35-150, which I also have a review about, and I'll leave it linked down below if you want to watch. With this lens, you are missing out on that last 50mm of the long end, but since it has a constant f2.8 aperture, you're getting the lens in a much smaller and lighter package. I do love the image quality of the 35-150, but it is a very heavy lens, especially if you're someone who spends many hours straight shooting. I think you'll miss the last 50mm more if you're a travel photographer or you rely on reach a lot during your event shoots. There's so much to work with, it's crazy. I like that pinkish. And the light's better this way too. Otherwise, for a portrait session, 100mm is enough in my opinion to be able to capture beautiful headshots with lots of background to foreground separation. In use, this lens felt incredibly nimble out on location, so I had no problems keeping up with Eva's fast movements, and I was easily changing up my compositions while shooting. Please note, the 35-150 photos were captured on the Sony a7 III, which has a 24-megapixel sensor compared to the a7 IV's 33-megapixel sensor that I'm using today, which is why you're seeing a size difference when we look at the photos at 100% crop. You can see the 35-150 photos do have a smoother background, but sharpness and details wise, both lenses look quite similar to me. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're a photographer who relies heavily on long reach, or you want the smoothest bokeh, then the 35-150 or even 70-180 from Tamron might make more sense for you. But if you value a lens you can comfortably carry all day without compromising too much on image quality or performance, this 35-100 makes a lot of sense. All right, if you want to hold that pose for a sec, I'm going to get the same shot on both. All right, so I'm at 70mm and I'm going to get a shot on the Z8 here, and then I'm going to get the exact same shot on Sony, and we'll just compare them side by side. As always, I'm gonna take a photo at all the main focal lengths of this zoom lens just so you can see the range. So I'm gonna start off at 35mm here. Next we have 50, and then we have 70, and we have 85, and finally 100. And then we're gonna do that again, but this time I'm gonna move around and frame each shot to look the same. So I'm gonna get like above your knees for this one. So we have 100, 85, 70, 50, 35. That is all I have for today's review. Don't forget to check out my natural lighting workshop, which is linked down below. But thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I'll see you all next time. Bye.